doing here? Mom! Dad! I screamed, choking back tears. I found my parents in my ex-boyfriend's house completely by accident. I was delivering chicken to him from the delivery service where I worked. Hello, everyone. My name is Chloe. I lost my parents 5 years ago and have been living alone and trying to exist since then. My relatives firmly believe that they died. They even staged a mock funeral, which was a laughingstock. But I know for sure that they are alive, and I will find them. As soon as I saw them, I ran to hug them, but they stood like statues and didn't move. My ex-boyfriend Matt was also surprised that they were my parents. He said that they'd been working for him for about 2 years, living with him and working. It couldn't be true. Since they didn't recognize me, they probably lost their memories. I'd finally found them. Mom, Dad, no one believed that you were alive, but I knew for sure that you were and that I'd find you, and I did. I shouted in tears. I asked Matt for permission to visit them, and he allowed it. It was painful when they denied that I was their daughter, saying that they didn't have any children, but it was still good to find them. I decided to just give them time to remember me. While Mom and Dad went about their business, Matt and I sat in the gazebo of his house to drink soda. Did you leave me because your parents disappeared? Why didn't you tell me anything? I couldn't. I'm sorry. I was too busy searching, but everything's fine now. I'm so happy that I found them. They may not remember me, but I remember them, and they're alive, and that's enough. Thank you for taking care of them. If I knew they were your parents, I would have told you right away. I know, and yes, I'm sorry I didn't come to the date back then. Yeah, I was waiting. It's been so many years. I'm just glad you're alive and well. Matt allowed me to come to his house every day after work. He arranged joint dinners and parties for us at his house. My parents tried to smile and communicate with me, but it wasn't the same as before. I knew it could all be fixed, though. Once, Matt said that I could stay overnight. He said I could spend some time with my parents while he went to a friend's. I was overjoyed. I got to spend a full evening together with my family. Suddenly, someone rang the doorbell. I thought it was Matt returning, but it was his mother. I was surprised, and she was even more so. Then she became angry. Matt's mother screamed at me to leave her son's house. Get out! It's been 5 years since you left Matt, and he still hasn't recovered. And now you show up again? And you two, what the hell are you doing sitting with her and having dinner? My parents immediately came to her and tried to apologize. We're sorry, ma'am, this won't happen again. We were just following the owner's orders, they said. His mother asked, What orders? My mother timidly stepped forward and said that Matt asked them to pretend to be my parents. I interrupted their conversation and said that I would leave, just so she wouldn't hurt my parents. But she kept calling me crazy, saying that my parents disappeared years ago while hiking in the mountains, that their bodies were found and buried, and that my family just didn't show me. Tears streamed down my face. You have no right to say that. Here they are, they just forgot about me, but I found them and they're alive. They're with me, I said, firmly clenching my fists. Then someone grabbed my hand. It was Matt. He hugged me, silently pulled me into his car, and drove me away from the house. We sat in his car. He sighed deeply and said that everything his mother said was true. I couldn't believe it. But you said yourself that you didn't know about my parents' disappearance. I told him, but he said, I didn't want to hurt you. I'm sorry. We hired those people almost immediately after they came here. They've been working for us for 7 years. They definitely don't have children because they can't have them. They raised me and took care of me. They just look like your parents. His words hurt me. Is this really true? Am I going crazy? It turns out that I'd made everything up. He opened the door and took me to the hospital for some reason, and only then did it turn out that the information about my parents' death was registered there. I just wasn't ready to accept it. All these years, I've been searching for people who've been dead all along, living on hope thanks to my imagination. Matt wanted to help me distract myself, at least for a while, but I only got angrier after that situation. I was angry at him for giving me false hope, but I was even more angry with myself. Can you give me advice on how to deal with this? Oh no, what to do? I hacked into the president's account and learned something super secret, and this event changed my life forever. Hi everyone, I'm Ava, and I'm from Moldova. Now I'll tell you about how one day I accidentally managed to hack into the account of the president of the country. Okay, one of the former ones, but that's not the point. What I learned there shocked not only me, but it also affected my entire future. My mother worked as a cook in that house for many years, and so did my grandmother. As I grew up, my mother was already preparing me for the same position, which was already the third generation in the family. Of all the servants, for some reason, the president treated me with great awe. This is because I was born and raised in the house as a true, devoted servant. His granddaughter, Evelina, periodically visited him. She hated me, just like I hated her. And then one day, she deliberately broke the owner's favorite vase. It was presented to him by an old friend from Germany. The item was so valuable. I knew about it and immediately ran inside. Instead of apologizing, Evelina shouted, "Grandfather, look what she's done! This is awful! Your favorite vase!" My legs buckled from fear. How could she? It wasn't me. Honestly, it wasn't me. I tried to justify myself, but the owner just frowned silently and ordered me into his office. This meant a serious conversation. When he entered, I was already standing there and trembling all over from fear.
"Don't be afraid, it's all right. I know Evelina did it,"
he said. What? Seriously? I exhaled in relief and then asked him why he called me into his office. He then asked for my help.
"You know I'm an old man and I don't understand these things, but my German friend wants to talk via a video link. Please help me to set up my social network."
Seriously? I thought, and just agreed. When I got onto his laptop, I opened the desired page and a password was required. Maybe I just knew him too well, but I managed to guess the password within 3 attempts since he didn't remember it. He himself was surprised at my hacking abilities. And then someone called him and he left the office, and private messages with his German friend opened up in front of me. Everything should have been fine, but suddenly photos of my mother and even my grandmother popped up. It was weird. What were they doing there? And a minute later, I saw the truth. My legs gave out again, my heart raced, and then the president came in.
"What's wrong with you, Ava?"
Are you my grandfather?" The president immediately approached me and saw that the evidence was irrefutable. I had such a mess in my head. He immediately told me to remain silent, admitting that he and my grandmother had once had an affair, and my mother still didn't know who her father is. My grandmother has long since been retired and lives in another country, as per his request. My hands were shaking. A lump formed in my throat. How could I live with a secret? And then the president offered me a bribe for my silence. Firstly, he allocated my mother and me a separate house on the territory with all amenities, where only the two of us would live. He raised my mother's salary and promised a monthly bonus. He secretly bought me architecture courses and promised to help me get through college. At first, I rejoiced. I was so excited by the clothes he bought with his money, phones, and trips to beauty salons. But then, everything became clear. Evelina developed a special attitude. At first, the mean girl tried to spoil the food cooked by my mother, scratched his cars, stole everything from me, ruined expensive roses in the garden, and blamed everything on my mother. There was no reaction from the president, and it infuriated her even more. One day, there was a special reception at the house. A German friend of the president arrived. He gave a bunch of gifts to all the family members, and when everyone left for the dining room, he unexpectedly gave my mother a super beautiful scarf, saying what kind of delicious dishes she'd made him. Mom was pleasantly surprised. But Evelina, seeing this gesture, went berserk. She took the gift from my mother and shouted, "You don't deserve this! Have you heard about it? You were born a servant, and you'll die as one." Anger boiled up in me, but my mother, instead of putting this bastard in her place, simply bowed and asked for her forgiveness. "For what? She's your aunt by status. She has the same rights as you, mean girl!" I screamed. I grabbed the scarf, twisted it in my hands, and threw it around Evelina's neck, and then threw her on the floor. Evelina screamed as if she'd been hurt. The president and his friend pulled us apart. The servants were in shock. My mother begged for them to excuse my behavior, and I was breathing in anger like a dragon. I was already preparing to shout again that I was his granddaughter, just like Evelina, and then something unexpectedly happened. "You love her more than me, Grandpa!" shouted Evelina.
"What? What are you talking about, honey?"
"Everyone knows, and my mother and grandmother too. This is your daughter, and this is your granddaughter, and you've always loved them more. Why? Mom became ill. I brought her water and sat her in a chair. All members of the family were standing nearby. It seems that only my mother and the other servants didn't know about this secret. Now I understood why Evelina hated me so much. After this incident, my mother and I could no longer stay there, and the president bought us a house in another country, where we went forever. However, he still comes to visit us from time to time, and he asked me not to tell anyone about it.